Constable Samuel Tompoi and Benedict Kabiru were remembered for their contributions.
Of America, here represented by you, Your Excellency Christopher Landau. Thank you very much for your thoughtfulness, for your friendship, and for your commitment to international peace. Your presence here today underscores the deep and long-lasting partnership between Kenya and the United States, which now spans over 6 decades and is anchored on shared democratic values, economic ties, and strong security cooperation, further elevated by Kenya's designation as a major non-NATO ally. We are grateful for the immense logistical and technical support extended by the United States government to Haitian mission. We also highly value the partnership between the United States and the National Police Service in training and equipping our officers, including, as has been mentioned already, by the IG Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program, which have benefited our officers from the General Service Unit, Border Patrol Unit, the Special Operation Group, and other specialized units.
Now, anyone found guilty of orchestrating the attack against ACK Witima in Odhaya will be prosecuted according to the law. This was stated by the Central Regional Commissioner Joshua Nkanava, who earlier yesterday revealed that investigations into the Sunday attack are ongoing, led by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, that is the IPOA. But the County Commissioner, who did not rule out possible police involvement in the attack, stressed that it is strongly condemned while reminding public servants, including police and other national officers, against engaging in violent attacks against the citizens they are mandated to protect.
The matter was taken from the DCI by the 2 government agencies, one IPOA and the internal affairs in the police unit. And for obvious reasons, we cannot investigate ourselves. The message to all of us, especially the public servants, the police, the girls, everyone, is that we should take our work seriously. And we know we have the standard operating procedures. And we are saying that the entire government machinery in Central Region will not withstand any or tolerate any incitement from whichever quarter. We will be very firm to make sure that we don't create chaos.
Now, Kero Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has urged the government to make education free, saying that it is feasible. Nyoro's statements comes after the Ministry of Education admitted that the cost of free education is unclear. He stated that the government can make education free by increasing the subsidy for secondary school students from 22,000 Kenya shillings per student to 31,000 Kenya shillings. Nyoro added that the government would only need to allocate 30 billion Kenya shillings to achieve this.
In Kenya for the last program is an average of 35 shillings every day. And we have 185 days that we are in school. All the other days we are on holiday. And therefore, Kenya will only need just around 6,500 shillings additional per annum for all the day schools to be free, including lunch. And we can afford to earn another 3,000 shillings on top of the 6,500 shillings so that the principals can get money to pay the BUM teachers where there are shortfalls and to pay all the other costs that are not captured under capitation. So I'm requesting those who are in government, there are movements that come to a nation that become critical junctures. Yes. The critical juncture for Kenya to offer free day secondary school is now, not tomorrow. And I am not pushing this burden to the government entirely. As a member of parliament for Kiharu, I am just saying I am ready for the government to cut our CDF by 30 billion every constituency. And we are going to raise 10 billion Kenya shillings out of that. Yeah.
The National Treasury Secretary, that is Dr. Chris Kipto, stated that the government is ready to accept any buyer who offers the highest price for Safaricom shares. The ministry said that a price of 34 shillings per share is the best in the market. Some opposing members of parliament raising questions about the future of the company if it's sold.
Best price, 34 shillings, which is 24% higher. And you can prove us wrong by telling us that we would be selling it at a premium to the public, to the other shareholders. Yeah, we can do that in our in-house because I have the director there, he's taking note.
Vodacom has been a shareholder of Safaricom since its inception. So when you want to negotiate for someone else to buy your business, you are better off negotiating with an existing shareholder who understands the business. So if you get someone else from outside and they come, there are chances that they will disrupt the entire model of this business.
Now, questions continue to be raised concerning the misuse of public funds in Embu County, with investigations revealing that 10 million Kenya shillings allocated for industrial development were used to finance a political meeting. Now, the funds were used to support a meeting aimed at empowering border operators in Embu County, and Embu County Governor Cecily Mbarile admitted authorizing the release of these funds, while senators warned against the misuse of development funds.
We intend to refund it.
We were to refund by the close of the year, the same year, June.
Which should have been captured in this financial statement.
Yes, but unfortunately we were not able.
And what did you use this money for, now that you're disputing the Mandazi analogy?
No, we are saying...
So what was the money used for?
Month of June, we had what we were calling a Buddha Summit, where we were launching the Buddha Circle. And he came and told me, we have no money. The summit was here. And this money we had undertaken to give to the circles. So part of that money went to the circles and therefore should be refunded in this financial year.
Members, between this and the House...
Because there was a delay.
Which Governor, how many exchequer releases have you received since that time? And you don't seem bothered that you need to refund this money.
No, it didn't go to my pocket.
You actually don't have a choice.
Then I have no reason.
Are you not under oath? And you are appearing
Yeah, but people lie under oath, Senator Sifuna. We've seen people mislead this house under oath.
So now that the refund has not been done, to give us some commitment to which we can hold you accountable.
Chair, I'm promising you with the release that we have right now, because there's some release that came, we are going to fully refund the 10 million.
Okay. So then members, as we are doing our report and sending
Chair,
our report to the House, will determine what to do with the illegalities.
Chair, also, we realized that it was an illegality, and I want to promise that going forward, that is not going to happen again in Embu County.
Now, following rumors of corruption and missing funds in the SHA program, Minister, that is the CS, Eden Duale, confirmed that the government is continuing the investigation to recover funds allegedly misappropriated by fraudsters and return them to the public. This comes after reports showed that SHA lost about 11 billion Kenya shillings from October 2024 to the present year. Additionally, CS Duale stated that private hospitals lead in corruption complaints within the SHA program.
So far, we have found the fraud is about 11 billion. Since the audit we have done from April last year. So I am going back. It's good they hear me. April to October 2024. That was when really theft taken place. So, when SHA started. SHA started in October 2024. And we have a very good program. When we find you with a certain money, if you, we will recover from your reimbursement.
So this 11 billion, how much have you recovered?
We are in the process of recovery.
Now, 2 people have been killed while 3 others were seriously injured after being stabbed in the Matisi and Falkland areas near Kitale Town, Trans Nzoia County. The incident has sparked fear among local residents, and according to the family of the deceased, Frederick Subai died while returning home from St. Kizito Church in Matisi around 1 p.m. Now, it is alleged that the criminal gang attacked the victims before fleeing with their mobile phones. Residents of the area are now urging the county government and security agencies to increase patrols to curb the crime.
Alitoka kazini saa 10, akawa anarudi saa 11 kwenda mazoezi ya kwaya. Saa 1 tukasikia manduru ati amevamiwa, amedungwa kisu. Na hivyo tulisikia ameaga.
Na kuna kijana alikimbizwa jana highway hospital, wakamwambia kwamba hawezi kutibiwa pale, yuko referral, na hadi sasa hatujui ni wangapi wameumia, na hatujui hali ya huyo kijana pia vile ilivyo. Na hata sasa kufikia saa hizi mimi pia sijaenda hospitali wala sijapiga ripoti kwa polisi, kwa sababu ni vitu zenye zilifanyika, mambo yenye yalifanyika usiku.
Maskari wenye wakitembea wanaenda tu nyumba za pombe ndio mbio, lakini kuangalia tu mwananchi, hata ukisimama hii barabara hakuna siku utaona maskari wana patrol. Ukiona mwenye ana patrol ni jambazi. Ukiona wana patrol wamekuja kushika wamama. Tutafanya haja kama sisi wa kwanza. Tutafanya haja, hata hatuna usaidizi. Tulalia serikali. Mtoto ya haja, mtoto mdogo.
Na pia ninaomba majirani ambao wanaweza kuwa wanajua wale ambao wameweza kuhusika kwa kitendo kama hiki, ninaomba nipashwe habari kama mzee wa mtaa, pia mimi nami submit report kwa ofisi nyingi.
Now, public transport vehicles drivers have threatened to go on a strike next Monday. The Matatu Owners Association said the strike is aimed at protesting what they call the government's negligence in handling incidences of vehicles being set on fire by border operators. The Matatu drivers have urged the government to conduct a thorough investigation into these attacks and ensure that the perpetrators are arrested and legally prosecuted.
From Monday, we will make sure all major towns and cities and roundabouts in the country, there will be no passing until the government addresses. We have not seen any arrest. We have not seen any report. Unless we have that sitting to be assured by the minister, by the president, of the safety measures of the investors. You know, a boda guy uses 15,000 goes for a loan. A matatu or a truck driver uses millions of shillings. So we want the attention of the government on this matter.
We are going to work very closely, and we are not going to disrupt any business. We will make sure other businesses are moving on as it's supposed to be. And the only person we are going to listen to is the president, because these other people have failed. The police have failed, NTSA have failed, and even the minister himself, he has failed. Since he came to office, he has never met the Matatu Owners Association.
Authorities in the Malava constituency, Kakamega County, are investigating a fire that destroyed a student accommodation at Shamberere Boys Secondary School. Principal Laban Sikolia said the fire started at night where students were in class and destroyed property worth 1.8 million Kenya shillings belonging to 78 students. Now, the area member of parliament, David Ndakwa, who visited the school and provided residential supplies to students who lost property, urged school administrators to be more vigilant to ensure student safety.
Wanafunzi walipoteza vitabu, wanafunzi walipoteza hata mattresses mingi na blankets na bed sheets, hata nyumba iliungua, inataka renovation ifanywe umo ndani.
Walimu wakae kwa shule, watoto wakiwa preps wanafanya rounds, ndio kitu kama hiyo ikitendeka tena wanakuwa na alert.
Now, police officers in Tongareni, Bungoma County have conducted a major operation against illegal brewers and consumers of illegal alcohol during the raid. Now, police destroyed 2,000 liters of what is called Kangawa alcohol and arrested one suspect with 120 liters of Changa in Matisi village. Deputy Commissioner of Police Sambo Solama Nginae, alongside officer in charge of Brigadier Police Station Luke Escon, warned local residents against engaging in the illegal alcohol trade and urged them to start legitimate business instead.
Illicit brew raid kwa kawaida kama routine na pia tukifuata presidential directive. Katika harakati hizo tumeweza arrest mtu mmoja ambaye alikuwa arrogant, he was resisting to be arrested, na lita ya Chang'aa 120. Pia katika harakati hizo tuliweza kupatana mama mwingine ambaye alikuwa anatengeneza kangara na akatupea habari njema ya kwamba yeye ameamua kuacha pombe hiyo. Tunaendelea kuwahimiza wale ambao wanajihusisha katika biashara hii ya pombe haramu wafuate mfano huo wa huo mama ambaye amesema amekuwa akitengeneza kangara kwa miaka mingi, lakini kwa sasa ameona serikali iko katika juhudi za kuangamiza hiyo biashara. Kwa hivyo tunawahimiza wabadilishe biashara, waingie katika ukulima na biashara zingine ambazo zinatambuliwa kisheria. Kwa upande wetu tumejitolea kufanya kazi ya serikali kuhakikisha wanasaidika kuokoka katika mihadarati na pombe ya haramu.
Nilikuwa nimefanya hii biashara ya pombe muda mrefu. Imenisaidia pakubwa. Nisomesha watoto, nimenunua mashamba ndani. Sasa nimeamua kubadilisha nifanye biashara nyingine. Nimeacha juu serikali itaki pombe haramu.
Now, a businessman in Olukalau, constituency that is in Nyandarua County, along with his son, was detained by police on suspicion of livestock theft. The two were caught carrying beef suspected to be from stolen cattle. Now, they escaped mob justice after an angry crowd attempted to take the law into their own hands, including touching their vehicle. Police intervened to calm the angry mob. The beef is allegedly from 3 cattle stolen from a resident in Kangunda village. Police Commander Stella Cherono said investigations are ongoing and urged residents to stop taking the law into their own hands and instead report such incidences to security agencies.
Investigation is ongoing concerning the case, and members of public are requested, or we are requesting members of public to have patience, especially when it comes to matters concerning suspects that are arrested. After arresting these people, we'll need to get information from them to assist us to prevent these particular incidences in future.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world. You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Our generation will not die. This generation will not perish in clubs. There is a dimension of God as a father. We are taking over that mountain because what you are asking for cannot be given to a stranger. Run to the altar. The anointing of God will come upon you. Look at the prophecy in Isaiah 2:2. Look at that prophecy, because we have the mountain of governance, education, commerce. There is a general doctrination to begin to counter the narration of rapture. If Jesus was given to us, what else can he withhold from us?
EBN TV cares about the growth of your business. To advertise with us, call 0725 386 501 or 0740 653 453. EBN TV, transforming your world.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
from Nairobi, Kenya. This is EBN TV.
Welcome to the Manifest Show, the latest show in East Africa. Tunakupea dance moto, tunakupea muziki from the latest songs.
Ndio masaa yetu.
Come every Saturday from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Kuna shona kila kona, kama unareka sana bana ungekuja jana.
We have amazing guest artists.
Na usisahau kuna word. Na pia kuna amazing topics. Don't miss to watch this
on the Manifest Show, only on EBN TV.
Makofi.
Let us move on to our next questioner at the microphone over there. Mr.
Welcome to America, Mr. Mandela. I'm Ken Edelman. Those of us who share your struggle for human rights and against apartheid have been somewhat disappointed by the models of human rights that you have held up since being released in jail. You've met over the last 6 months 3 times with Yasser Arafat, who you have praised. You have told Gaddafi that you share the view and applaud him on his record of human rights and his drive for freedom and peace around the world. And you have praised Fidel Castro as a leader of human rights and said that Cuba was one of the countries that's head and shoulders above all other countries in human rights, despite the fact that documents at the United Nations and elsewhere show that Cuba is one of the worst. I was just wondering, are these your models of leaders of human rights? And if so, would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
You cannot be blessed wholesomely when you are carrying all this baggage with you. Brothers and sisters, you must put down your luggage and begin to walk the narrow path that God has defined for you.
If the Son, ikiwa Bwana, sets you free, atakuweka huru, hutaponywa mguu mmoja. You will not only be healed on one of your feet, utaponywa yote mbili. Both of them will be healed. If the Son sets us free, ikiwa Bwana atatuweka huru, he will set us free indeed. Atatuweka huru kweli kweli.
And so be it in the name of Jesus Christ. And immediately after that, the Lord Jesus went slowly and lay hands on her. And the woman was totally loosed and healed. And she walked upright.
kuna kitu kwa ajili ya maisha yako, na ni wewe mwenyewe unayesadai kusema, Bwana, nisitoke hapa bure, Bwana, nisiharibu wakati bure, nisiibe bure, nisifanye bure, nisiokoke bure. Hakuna faida. Uimbe sifa za Mungu na mwisho wake uwe wa kudharauliwa.
That there is in prayer. There is power in prayer, so much that when you pray, it goes far beyond your level. It goes and grasps the present, first of all, the past, the present, and the future, both short distance and long distance.
Right, welcome back to the program. Just in case you're joining us, this is The Drift. My name is Martin Macharia. Let's take a look on what's making headlines in the dailies today. And of course, just so you know, that the former deputy president and the Democracy for Citizens Party leader will actually, know his fate today. The Supreme Court in Kenya is scheduled to deliver a ruling on today at 10 a.m. that is regarding the legal challenges surrounding the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagwa's impeachment. You'll remember that Rigathi Gachagua was actually impeached on October 2024. Right, and the key details of the ruling will include the court dispute. The case focuses on whether the Deputy Chief Justice, that is DCJ Philomena Mwilu, had the constitutional authority to empanel a 3-judge bench, High Court bench, while deputizing the Chief Justice Martha Koome, as well as legal experts and Gachagwa's lawyer clarify that this is an interlocutory ruling or a procedural step and not a final verdict on whether the impeachment itself was valid, and or whether Gachagua should be reinstated, and as well as the Court of Appeal had earlier ruled that DCJ, that is Deputy Chief Justice, lacked the authority to empanel the bench, a decision that the National Assembly is now challenging at the Supreme Court. Of course, we shall be bringing you subsequent bulletins, other subsequent updates in regards to that particular story in our subsequent bulletins right here on EBN television. Now, let's take a look on what's making headlines on the dailies, and I'm having the Daily Nation newspaper this particular morning, and of course the Standard newspaper this particular morning. And let's kick it off with the Daily Nation, where the top story of the Daily Nation is the current deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki. And of course, the Daily Nation top story says Kindiki's 340 million Kenya shillings budget for private jets and choppers. And Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is splashing 338.8 million Kenya shillings on flights, choppers, chartered and commercial planes in the financial year ending June 2026. Official disclosures have shown casting doubt on the government's commitment to austerity measures amid tight finances. Now, the DP's office has already overshot its annual recurrent budget. Of course, we remember that the deputy president, that is the incumbent deputy president Kithure Kindiki, was actually sworn in 2024, and you can imagine, how the budget has shot as of June 2026. The year ended the year ending June 2026. Now let's take a look at that particular story on page 4 of the Daily Nation, and the Daily Nation says that revelations emerge at a time when DP's office overshot its annual recurrent budget by 219.3 million in just 6 months, spending 3.2 billion Kenya shillings against the annual budget of 2.97 billion by December. Now, the spending on flights alone will also surpass the office's over all domestic and foreign travels budget in the last financial year by 88.35 million Kenya shillings, underlining growth in non-essential expenditures in his office at a time when the government has been struggling to effect austerity measures. Now, during the 2024-2025 fiscal year, the office spent 250.45 million Kenya shillings on travel, within and outside the country, but this is expected to grow by 35.3% in the current year, considering flight travels alone. Now, the documents which have been uploaded on the electronic government procurement, that is EGP system, show that DP's office has laid down a spending plan of 409.66 million Kenya shillings on transportation, storage and mail services, out of which travel by helicopters, commercial airplanes and chartered planes are contained. All right, that's a story exclusively on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Of course, the budget controller, that is Margaret Nyagango, says in the court the office of the spouse of the deputy president had no budget allocation in the period under review, but incurred expenditure of 0.27 million Kenya shillings. All right. Now, the TSC, in matters corridors of justice, the court gives TSC green light to fill vacant top positions, and the High Court yesterday actually cleared the Teachers Service Commission to proceed with the recruitment of its chief executive officer after dismissing a petition challenging the hiring process. Now, the court had ruled that the petitioner had failed to present sufficient evidence to warrant halting the recruitment and did not demonstrate how the process would prejudice public interest. It therefore lifted the restrictions sought against the appointment. Now, the CEO position fell vacant on June 30th last year following the expiry of the term of the former CEO Nancy Macharia, Ms. Evelyn Mitei, and since been serving in an acting capacity. That's a story on page 5 of the Daily Nation this particular morning. Now, still on matters education, why nearly half of Kenyans are unhappy with CBE grading. Now, close to half of Kenyans are dissatisfied with the grading system and the competency-based education, citing information gaps in its application. A poll by Infotrack shows 45% of the respondents complained that the system that rates performance under the 4 bands is confusing. Now, 17% they say they don't know about the CBE curriculum. 17%, and those who are saying that yes, this particular curriculum is actually good is 38%, and the level of satisfaction with CBE grading system, 45% actually saying no, and 17% actually saying that they do not know about this particular curriculum. Let's take a look at that particular story. And of course, you'll remember that the Infotrack yesterday actually released the polls in regards to that particular curriculum, and how, of course, we've seen the parents and actually guardians, citing that the CBE curriculum has actually, it's actually expensive as of this particular curriculum was introduced when the former deputy president, that is William Ruto, who was actually the deputy president to Uhuru Kenyatta, when actually he came to power, he brought up this the competence-based education. Parents actually citing that this curriculum is actually siphoning money from their pockets, saying that education has actually become expensive, and of course many children right now actually remains at home because of lack of school fees. And of course, you remember for the better part of this particular week, President William Ruto actually said that if any child is at home because of school fees or uniform, should actually report to school and issue that particular guideline to parents. But is that actually happening in the ground? Because many parents actually cite when they actually go to school, the principals tells them, you have to complete school fees, you have to have uniforms, for the transition. You'll remember that this particular year, there was a grade 10 transition where parents actually cited that they don't know even the books to buy. All right, the stationery has become expensive. Now, the InfoTrack polls yesterday, statistics say that nearly half of Kenyans are unhappy with the CBE grading, and close to half of Kenyans are dissatisfied with the grading system and the competency-based education, that is CBE, citing information gaps in its application. Now, the new poll by InfoTrack released yesterday shows that 45% of respondents said that they were dissatisfied with the grading system, while 38% expressed satisfaction with it. Now, the remaining 17% were unsure of the grading system that classifies learners' performance under the bands of exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, approaching expectations, and below expectations. Of course, you will remember that during the 844 system, they actually used their grading system was actually, they used to grade with points, and A was an 80 points grade. Of course, we used to have A, B, C, D, and E. All right, now that E in the 844 in this particular competency-based education, E is exceeding expectations. Right, E is actually the highest, grading point, and each band is further divided in the upper and lower levels, allowing for more refined differentiation of learner performance. Now, the survey, which was carried out between December of 2025 and January of 2026, has sampled parents and learners, with learners under the CBE, which shows that the Northern Eastern region registered the highest level of satisfaction with the grading system at 80%, followed by Western region at 46%. Now, the Coast region recorded the highest level of dissatisfaction with the system at 55%, followed by Eastern at 50% and Nairobi at 49%. That's a story exclusively on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Still on matters education, end of fragmented bursaries, new push for single education fund. Now, the push to make education free for all Kenyans is gaining momentum after the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula directed MPs to formulate laws collapsing bursaries and public scholarships into a single fund. Mr. Wetangula, echoing proposals earlier advanced by Chief Justice Martha Koome, said that the applications in bursary awards was hurting the education sector. He argued that considering funding streams such as the National Government Constituency Development Fund, that is the NGCDF, county bursaries and other kitties into one pool would ensure equitable distribution of resources. He was speaking on Wednesday at the parliamentary retreat in Naivasha, where the speaker challenged the Ministry of Education to engage stakeholders and develop policy solutions to address fragmented bursary systems. Now, he warned the duplicated awards, inequitable resource allocation, and even infrastructure funding and teacher deployment were undermining education equity. Right, that's our story on page 2 of the Daily Nation in matters education and bursaries. Now, the Speaker of the National Assembly now is rallying behind the MPs, saying that you actually need to to pull all these kitties into one fund so that we can actually have a free education where funds from the NGCDF, the funds which are actually the government give each student 22,000 for school capitation should actually come into one fund and make the education free. I don't know what's your take on that. Tell us or through our SMS line to 3059 and as well as on our Facebook page at EBN TV Kenya. Now, listen to this other story. Puzzle over death of 15 streets children. Now, one by one, 9 coffins were lowered into the ground at Langata Cemetery as dozens of mostly barefoot street people watched in silence. Some wiped tears, others stared blankly. Now, they were binding the final farewells to friends who became family. and whom they had shared scraps of food and cardboard shelters with on Nairobi's streets. Now, the bodies had been taken from Nairobi Funeral Home, formerly City Mortuary, and Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital Mortuary for mass burial organized by a foundation. Now, 6 other bodies were left at the funeral homes awaiting postmortem. Now, records from the Nairobi funeral homes shows that young people died in different parts of the city on different days. 2 died suddenly in Mlango Kubwa and Macharia on December 26, 2025. Another by suicide in Kariobangi on December 29th, and 2 others by natural causes in Pangani and Shauri Moyo on Christmas and Boxing Days. Now, among the group of mourners was Moses. Quietly, he spoke of his friend Enoch, whom he says, I never imagined would, be buried so soon. Moses added that he would remember the days he spent with Enoch for the rest of his life. And Moses also as well said that he talked with Enoch about life, and it's quite unfortunate, street children, actually dying, others because of suicide, others because of, natural calamities. And of course, it is actually good, when you meet these particular people in the streets, it's actually good, at least you help, even with food, because these people are actually suffering, all right? They can barely have put food on their table, which actually they don't have that particular table. So let's be generous to these particular street kids, even, as life goes on. All right, quite an unfortunate story right there. Of course, our condolences to the street families, of course, the friends to the bereaved. All right, now let's take a look on other stories making headlines on the Standard newspaper this particular morning. And the top story on the Standard newspaper says gold scammers haven. Of course, we've actually had these, scandals of gold scammers where people are actually scammed. Someone's telling you that he or she is selling gold to you only to find that they are just mere metals. All right? Not begun as a routine gold deal has exploded into a 37 million Kenya shillings fraud scandal exposing a sleek underground syndicate that allegedly lures foreign investors into Kenya with forged licenses, fake vaults, and theatrical security. As detectives close in case, the case raises uncomfortably questions about how organized gold scammers continue to thrive in plain sight. Now, several suspects have been arrested in similar schemes, but they thrive instead of languishing in Kamiti or Kodiaga prisons. That's a story on page 4. Of course, there is a picture there of Kevin Otieno Onyango, one of the suspects. And Dave White, a gold dealer, says, I was given one key and Paul Chogo had earlier and had the other. I set 2 combinations locked away and he set his 2. No one was supposed to access it without the other. That's according to Dave White. Now let's take a look at that particular story on page 4. Now, when the U.S. Commodities trader Dave White landed in Nairobi early December last year, he believed he was stepping into a legitimate gold deal, and that would open doors to mineral trade in the country. Instead, within weeks, he would find himself entangled with what detectives now describe as a carefully choreographed fraud that cost him 37 million Kenya shillings and exposed an underground network of alleged repeat gold scammers operating from high-end apartments of Kilimani. Now, court documents filed by the DCI detailed that how Dave White ordeal was lured to Kenya through online communication by a man identified as Paul Chogo. Now, Chogo, it is claimed, introduced himself as an independent gold seller acting on behalf of community miners and promised access to manufactured or to non-manufactured precious metals. Now White, the sole director of the Odell Gold and Commodities Trading and Investment Company registered in Dubai's Maiden Free Zone, told the Standard that the proposal fitted within the company's global trading portfolio, which includes coffee, cocoa, and metals. And of course, that's a story that goes on and on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Now, widow loses claim in Nyachai 2 billion estate. That's on Monday's Corridors of Justice, where a family court has dismissed a long-running succession dispute in which a woman claimed to be a widow of the late powerful politician Simeon Nyachai, ruling that she has never married to him and that her sons had no legal or moral claims to his estate. Now, in a detailed judgment delivered at the High Court, Family Court Judge Eric Ogola dismissed a petition filed by Margaret Chweya, who alleged that she married Nyachai under Kisii customary law in 1973 and bore him 3 children. Of course, that's a story on page 5 of the the Standard newspaper this particular morning on matters Corridors of Justice, and of course, as well as on page 5, matters Corridors of Justice Court has halted Amboseli National Park transfer to Kajiado County. All right, and President William Ruto has suffered another setback after the High Court suspended the controversial transfer of management functions of Amboseli National Park from the national government to Kajiado County government. And of course, I will remember, whether you remember, that in 2025, the head of state actually said during his tour in Kajiado County that, you know, the Amboseli National Park, which is under the county government, will actually be transferred to Kajiado County. But now the court has actually halted that particular transfer, where Justice Bahati Mwemuye issued conservatory orders halting the implementation of a Gazette notice published on October 24th of 2025 and a deed to transfer dated October 14th of 2025, pending the full determination of the petition filed by Joseph Kasau Massa. Now, in his ruling, Justice Mwemuye emphasized that conservatory orders are granted solely on the basis of irreparable harm, but on the inherent merit of the case, taking into account public interest, constitutional values, and promotionally. Now, the petitioner challenged that the transfer on grounds that it violated the constitutional arguments that management and protection of the national parks is an exclusive national function that cannot be devolved through gazette notices or executive agreements. Right? That's a story on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. Now listen to this particular story. The Wandering Souls, family of 6 in 8-year journey to nowhere. Now, after 8 years of walking across the country with their children in tow, a mysterious family from Nyamira County has finally broken its silence. And the family, comprising a man, his wife, and their 4 children aged between 8 years and 8 months, was spotted trekking from Kipsitet side before being secured or rescued by well-wishers. Now, the interception followed swift action by Belgat Member of Parliament Nelson Koech, who dispatched a search team after learning of the family's plight. Now, the legislator took to the social media on Wednesday, pledging to support the family by building them a house and ensuring that the children are enrolled in school. Speaking at the Kericho Child Protection Unit, 36-year-old Grace Kemunto said that this was the 3rd time the family has passed through Kericho during their trek, and that time they had been taken to a police station for their own safety. Now, Kemunto, who was accompanied by her husband David Makori, said that the journey began 8 years ago after her husband, then a carpenter, suddenly lost interest in his trade. Now, he later tried selling sugarcane but abandoned it as well. after which an unexplained urge that, keep walking took over on their lives. And of course, their pictures are actually there on page 3 of the Standard newspaper. And it's quite an unfortunate story. We are indeed in tough times. And of course, this is a family that has been trekking for 80 years, going to nowhere. They don't have shelter. They don't have jobs. It's quite unfortunate that, that has been happening for 80 years. And of course, at least now, someone has come to their rescue. Of course, let's continue, spreading love, generosity, and humanity to the less fortunate, right? We are already in tough economic times, and of course, people are actually struggling, to make ends meet, right? That's a story you can find on page 3 of the Standard newspaper this particular morning. Now, police officer is facing murder charges, threatens witnesses. All right. Now, police constable was on Wednesday arraigned in the Eldoret court for allegedly fatally shooting a 22-year-old student in Trans Nzoia County, while also facing the risk of having his 1 million Kenya shillings bond revoked for allegedly threatening and interfering with key witnesses in the case. Justice Ruben Nyakundi directed David Omondi to immediately refrain from interfering with or issuing death threats to witnesses lined up to testifying against him. Now, the judge issued a warning that after it emerged that Omondi had been spotted at the scene of the incident where he is alleged to have threatened some of the key witnesses. Right, that's also as well on page 3. And of course, this is quite an unfortunate story. We've seen police excesses, especially witnessed during the 2024 anti-government protest, which was actually later witnessed in the better part of 2025, June 25th of 2025, during the anniversary of the protest, which actually occurred in 2024. And we've seen police excesses, people actually killed by, live ammunition, by police, cases that still are in courts. Families are waiting for justice, families are waiting for closure. And yet again, actually, last weekend during the Sunday service at ACK Witima in Nyeri County, we actually saw, police vehicles, in the attack in which the former deputy president was actually there. It's quite unfortunate to see, the people we've entrusted, to protect us, the police, people who are being paid by the taxpayers' money, our money, are actually, turning against us. It's quite unfortunate, that we can't trust these people again. And we hope that, they will face the full force of the law. All right, that's a story on page 3 of the daily, the Standard newspaper, beg your pardon. Now let's take a look on what other stories making headline on the Standard newspaper. The young man who escaped Russia nurses warfront injuries, and at 28 years old, he would have been building his future. Instead, the young man returned home quietly injured, traumatized, and unwilling to speak much about what he had seen. He doesn't even want to his name published. His journey reveals the painful cost of the shoddy pipeline that has drawn young Kenyans into Russia's war against Ukraine. And according to the father, his firstborn son was recruited in July last year, but kept the family in the dark about the process. But upon a completion of his training, communication was almost impossible. The front lines were deep in contested areas where mobile network was poor. And of course, we actually saw in the Wednesday's dailies, we actually saw, families of these particular people who their kins actually in Russia and Ukraine actually decrying for the government to do something so that their kins will be repatriated to the country. Of course, this is a young man who escaped Russia nursing warfront injuries and trauma. He says that in that particular country, he lost communication with the family. Of course, we hope that justice actually, or that they will be repatriated to the country. All right. And a funeral of a kind as street families bury 9. Of course, we had taken a look at that particular story on the Daily Nation, of where the send-off ceremony of its kind, none of the mourners dressed in black, well-pressed suits or dresses as would be in a normal funeral. Now, mostly young men arrived in vests and shorts, with others visibly unkempt. This was the scene yesterday as street families in Nairobi arrived to collect bodies of their friends who died between November and January for burial at the Langata Cemetery. Right, you're now up to speed. That's making headlines in the dailies today. But remember that this particular morning at 10 a.m., the Supreme Court actually is scheduled to deliver a ruling regarding the legal challenges surrounding the former deputy president and the Democracy for Citizens Party leader, that is Rigathi Gachagua. And key details of the ruling will include the case will focus on whether the deputy chief justice, that is Philomena Mwilu, had the constitutional authority to impanel a three-judge high court bench while deputizing of Chief Justice Martha Koome, and as well as the legal experts and Gashagua's lawyer clarify that this is an interlocutory ruling, or rather a procedural step, and not a final verdict on whether the impeachment itself was valid or whether Gachagua should be reinstated. And as well as the Court of Appeal had earlier ruled that the DCJ, that is the Deputy Chief Justice, lacked the authority to impanel the bench, a decision that the National Assembly is now challenging at the Supreme Court. Of course, we shall be keeping tabs with that particular story, and we shall be bringing you in a subsequent bulletins later on in the day, as well as this developing stories. My name is Macharia. See you later on in the day, even as we continue keeping you up to speed, those making headlines from across our 47 counties and of course across our borders. Do yourself a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your programming. The Leadership Challenge is actually coming up next in the top of the hour at 9 a.m. My name is Macharia. Do yourself a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your programming. And as always, let's do this again when God says you do.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world. You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Our generation will not die. This generation will not perish in clubs. There is a dimension of God as a father. We are taking over that mountain because what you are asking for cannot be given to a stranger. Run to the altar. The anointing of God will come upon you. Look at the prophecy in Isaiah 2:2. Look at that prophecy, because we have the mountain of governance, education, commerce. There is a general doctrination to begin to counter the narration of rapture. If Jesus was given to us, what else can he withhold from us?
EBN TV cares about the growth of your business. To advertise with us, call 0725 386 501 or 0740 653 453. EBN TV, transforming your world.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.